The U.S. and Canada have built the world's largest bilateral trading relationship, supporting millions of jobs and deeply integrated supply chains. For decades, this partnership thrived on mutual benefit, with goods and capital flowing freely across the border. But recent years have seen rising protectionism and an America First approach, straining the alliance and challenging the very principles that made North American trade so successful. Now, as tensions reach a breaking point, the future of this historic partnership and the rules of global trade hang in the balance. In August 2025, at the opulent Mar-a-Lago estate, former President Trump stunned U.S. officials and business leaders with a radical and unprecedented demand: American operational control over Canada's most vital Pacific and Atlantic ports. The announcement came during a high-profile gathering, catching even seasoned diplomats off guard and sending immediate ripples through the corridors of power in both countries. Framing his proposal as a matter of urgent national security and economic leverage, Trump argued that U.S. supply chains were dangerously dependent on Canadian infrastructure. He insisted that without direct American oversight, the nation's economic future and security could be compromised, especially in an era of global uncertainty and shifting alliances. "These are gateways to our country. We should have a real say in how they're run. It's America first," he declared, his words echoing through the hall. The audience, a mix of business titans and political heavyweights, reacted with a blend of shock, intrigue, and apprehension. The proposal, quickly leaked to the press, sent shockwaves through both countries. Praised by some in Washington as a bold move to protect American interests, but condemned by diplomats and trade experts as a diplomatic grenade that threatened decades of cooperation. For the first time in modern history, the U.S. was demanding not just partnership or cooperation, but outright control, blurring the line between trusted ally and subordinate neighbor. The sense of trust that had defined the relationship for generations was suddenly in question. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test the very fabric of the U.S. Canada relationship, forcing both nations to reconsider their roles on the continent and the world stage. The world watched with bated breath as North America's closest allies teetered on the edge of a trade war, uncertain whether this bold demand would lead to a new era of cooperation or a historic rift that could reshape the continent's future. Canada's response came from the Senate chamber in Ottawa, where Carney, Special Envoy for Economic Sovereignty, delivered a clear message. "Canada is not a subsidiary. Our ports and infrastructure are sovereign assets, managed by Canadians for Canadians," Carney declared. He rejected the notion of U.S. oversight, calling it an affront to Canadian competence and sovereignty. "We welcome partnership, not control. Sovereignty is not for sale," he said, drawing a firm line. Carney countered with a proposal for a joint task force to improve port efficiency on equal terms. The message was unmistakable. Canada would not be bullied, and the ball was now in Washington's court. The standoff had become a defining test of national will. The days after Carney's speech saw a fierce public battle. Trump lashed out on social media, threatening tariffs and accusing Canada of exploiting U.S. generosity. Canada's foreign minister responded with calm resolve, emphasizing alliance, data, and the non-negotiable nature of sovereignty. "We will not negotiate with a tariff gun pointed at our head," she stated. Both sides rallied their domestic audiences, Trump's team stoking nationalism, Canadian officials highlighting the mutual benefits of trade. Canadian diplomats bypassed the White House, appealing directly to U.S. governors and business leaders whose states depended on cross-border commerce. The diplomatic chess match was now a battle for public opinion and political leverage. The stakes: the future of North America's economic partnership. The dispute ignited passionate reactions across both countries, sparking heated debates in living rooms, workplaces, and on social media. People everywhere were suddenly talking about trade, tariffs, and national pride. In Ohio, workers cheered Trump's tough stance, demanding more say over cross-border trade. Many felt their livelihoods were finally being defended, and rallies grew larger as the message spread. But business owners like Sarah in Buffalo warned, "This chaos threatens decades of trust. Everyone loses in a trade war." For them, uncertainty meant sleepless nights and tough decisions. In Canada, unity surged. At a Vancouver rally, student Chloe declared, "We are a sovereign nation, not America's 51st state." Her words echoed through the crowd, capturing a new sense of determination among Canadians. Even opposition politicians backed the government's stand, vowing to defend Canadian sovereignty at all costs. For once, political rivals found common ground, united by a shared purpose. The crisis united Canadians and divided Americans, exposing the deep stakes of the conflict. Families and friends debated fiercely, revealing just how personal the issue had become. The message from both sides was clear. This was about more than trade. It was about respect, identity, and the future. People on both sides wondered what would come next. The border had never felt more significant, standing as both a line of division and a symbol of everything at stake for two nations bound by history. The conflict exploded onto the world stage at the G7 summit in Biarritz, France, drawing the attention of leaders and media from across the globe. The picturesque seaside town became the unlikely backdrop for a high-stakes diplomatic showdown as the world's most powerful economies gathered under a cloud of uncertainty. Tensions were unmistakable as the U.S. President and Canadian Prime Minister kept their distance, their body language stiff and formal. The alliance, once considered unbreakable, was now visibly strained, with even casual interactions charged with underlying hostility. In a tense, closed-door meeting, the U.S. repeated its demands, accusing Canada of being a security risk and insisting on immediate policy changes. The American delegation's tone was uncompromising, escalating the sense of crisis. Canada, however, was not alone. Backed by key European leaders, Prime Minister Trudeau pushed back forcefully, calling the U.S. proposal a violation of international law and a threat to the rules-based order that had long governed global relations. The summit fractured along new lines, with Europe siding with Canada. The final communiqué, meant to signal unity, instead barely concealed the deep divisions that had emerged, leaving many to question the future of the alliance. Global markets shuddered in response, as investors feared the prospect of a trade war between two economic giants. The uncertainty sent shockwaves through financial centers, with analysts warning of long-term consequences. The spectacle of allies at odds quickly became a propaganda win for rivals like China and Russia, who seized the moment to highlight Western disunity and promote their own narratives on the world stage. The Western alliance, once a symbol of unity and shared purpose, now looked deeply fractured, its divisions exposed for all the world to see at this pivotal global event. In the aftermath, the U.S. quietly dropped its demand for port control, but the damage was done. Tariffs lingered, and trust was replaced by caution and calculation. Canada accelerated efforts to diversify trade, forging new deals with Europe and Asia, and Buy Canadian became a lasting movement. For the U.S., the episode revealed the limits of power and the cost of alienating a close ally. The era of easy partnership was over. Now, every interest would be verified, not assumed. The world's longest undefended border now bristled with invisible walls of mistrust. The crisis proved that even the closest friends can be pushed too far, and that sovereignty, once challenged, becomes a nation's most fiercely guarded possession.